Hi, you're listening to It Happened to Me, a rare disease and medical challenges podcast. The mission of our podcast is to support you, our listeners, and to create community as you confront the toughest challenges in life. All of us will experience health hardships. The real question is how we adapt. That's the focus of It Happened to Me, which wants to help you overcome limitations and live a full and satisfying life. Drawing on their own health challenges, co-hosts Kathy Gildenhorn and Beth Glassman interview guests who share stories and research to help you succeed in the face of difficult health obstacles. It happened to me. I'm not alone, and neither are you.
In this episode, we are joined by Marc Bassin. Marc has a professional career in commercial real estate, but he is a self-proclaimed fitness freak, biking over 7,000 miles a year, frequently on the golf course, pickleball court, and ski mountains. So it was shocking when one day he suddenly lost his hearing in one ear. Today, we're speaking with Marc about his journey from that day to today.
Welcome, Marc, and thank you for joining us on It Happened to Me. So,
Thank
Marc,
you for having me.
absolutely.
Thank you.
What happened on October 26, 2019?
So
What
I was
happened to you?
I was on a bike trip. Michael Gildenhorn, Kathy's husband, puts together multiple trips a year whereby we go to a national park or wherever, and we do a group ride. And this particular year, we decided to go to Big Bend National Park in West Texas. And 5 or 6 of us decided that we wanted to fly home early before the trip was over because the Nationals were in World Series game number 5. So we jumped on a plane in Midland, Texas, flew to Denver. From Denver, we flew into Reagan. And after getting off the plane, the hearing was gone in my left ear. So I'm hopeful, from this podcast, that there's anybody out there who suffers from sensorineural sudden hearing loss or SSHL. I hope that they'll find this helpful because it's an invisible disability that nobody knows you have. And it's hard to live with.
Wow.
Exactly. So you must have thought, your ear, if you just could pop your ear, the hearing would come back, I would imagine.
100%.
Uh-huh.
So what happened was I went to the actual baseball game that night and woke up on Sunday morning, and I went to the emergency room. I went to Suburban Hospital in Bethesda, Maryland.
Yeah.
And they told me my ear was perfectly fine. So the ear shows no sign of the damage. It's all in the cochlea. So they told me to go to CVS and buy some Sudafed and go home and it'll go away.
Wow.
And so what made you seek other medical attention? How long did it take you?
I woke up Monday morning and the hearing was still gone. Obviously, I didn't have airplane ear or any sort of type of infection in my ear. And so there was just, I lost my hearing. So I went in to see, I went into Feldman ENT in Chevy Chase, Maryland. And I saw an audiologist first, and the audiologist did a hearing test and discovered that I had profound hearing loss in my left ear.
I see. So the diagnosis was pretty quick.
Super quick. So then I immediately saw Nora Malazari, who was at Feldman ENT on my first visit, and they began injecting me intratympanically with steroids. So
intratympanically means what, Marc?
What?
Right through the ear.
Oh boy. Okay. I had a feeling. Oh my, was that painful?
Oh my God, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So I had 3 of those heavy dose injections. Then they put me on oral prednisone, and they told me that if I didn't regain the hearing from the prednisone injections and the oral prednisone within, say, 10 days, that more than likely I would never get my hearing back. So obviously I didn't take it lying down. So my next step was to go to Johns Hopkins, where I saw Dr. Chen, who told me, Dr. Chen did not even look at me. He literally told me, your hearing's done. You're never getting it back.
Really?
I then went the hyperbaric chamber route. So I did 40 hours over 20 days, 2 hours a day. I then did the MRI, looking for brain tumors or signs of stroke.
Yes.
I then went to a guy named Dr. Michael Siegel, who told me, you're not getting it back, put it in your pocket, and learn to live with it. I then went to Dr. Eisenman at University of Maryland, who told me I should get a cochlear implant. I was never getting it back. I then went to a Dr. Michael Morris, who put me on a myriad of antivirals. And to say that I was determined would be an understatement.
Sure.
I did everything I could possibly do
Everything you could do.
Everything.
To
Wow.
regain your hearing. And every morning, I guess you woke up and said, darn.
Every single morning I woke up and prayed I would get my hearing back. Because like I said, the hearing was one thing, the tinnitus was a whole nother thing.
And when did the tinnitus appear? How did it, what
So
happened?
the tinnitus appeared almost immediately. The name of the disease or the diagnosis was unilateral SSHL, or unilateral sudden sensorineural hearing loss.
Mark, can I interrupt for one moment? Can you tell our audience what is tinnitus?
Tinnitus is a ringing in the ears,
okay,
which affects millions and millions and millions of people.
For goodness sake.
And it is my particular tinnitus is caused by the brain still trying to make the connection to the auditory nerve. Most tinnitus is idiopathic. Most people that have they don't know what it is. It's just completely undiagnosed.
Oh wow!
And the brain doesn't give up. At some point, won't your brain stop telegraphing?
We can get into that a little bit later. I can tell you some of the things that were recommended to me by medical experts on trying to deal with tinnitus. But the bottom line is you can't cure tinnitus. There is no cure for it. There's lots of snake oil salesmen out there that try to sell cures to tinnitus, but the bottom line is there's no cure. I mean, you could do transcendental meditation, you could do mindfulness training and all these type of things, but the bottom line is you have to learn to live with the ring.
Wow. Well, can we go back for a minute to the diagnosis of SSHL that you mentioned? Who finally made that? Of all the specialists you visited, who finally gave you a few answers?
Well, the bottom line is, so when an ENT looks in your ear, and your ear is completely normal. You don't have an ear infection. You don't have a broken eardrum. They can see the ear is normal. So naturally, they go right to the sensorineural sudden hearing loss, which is sort of a catch-all, because they say it's a virus. And at the time, I did have a chest cold, but I was riding my bike every day with all the guys, and I felt fine. I just had a little bit of a cold, so maybe it was the cold that affected the nerve, which was a virus, obviously.
Wow. And then, if I can go back to the tinnitus, is that tinnitus or tinnitus? How do we say that?
It's tomato, potato.
Okay. Okay. How has the presence of tinnitus impacted your daily life and interactions since the hearing loss? I mean, it sounds like it's really difficult for you to manage. For anyone.
The tinnitus, as the day goes on, so you wake up and it's immediately there. And so as the day goes on, depending on the levels of stress or depending on the levels of anxiety that we all experience every single day, some days it gets worse, some days it gets better. It just all depends. It's a very difficult thing to live with. Very
distracting. Like, can you read a book and comprehend while you have it ringing in your ear?
Well, I've gotten to the point I can absolutely do anything with the tinnitus. Anything I can
Is that prevalent that you can do anything? You had to learn to manage with it existing the way it is.
Yeah, you have to learn to live with it. I could see how some people have just go absolutely mad. I mean, there's people that have bad enough tinnitus where they become suicidal.
How awful.
Yes, I would imagine that it would be very just terribly annoying would be an understatement. Having both the hearing loss and the ringing in your ear. Not only is it difficult for you to function, but can you talk a little bit about the emotional and the psychological drain that it presents?
Well, emotional and psychological, I mean, it's an incredible feeling of loneliness. And so you need to be able to reach out to the, to whether it's Facebook groups or, realizing that you're not alone. I also got involved in a couple of studies. I got involved in an NIH study where a company called Frequency Therapeutics was studying a drug called FX322, which is a regenerative growth of the nerve hairs in the cochlea. So this study was being done in Richmond, and I went there a half a dozen times and had several of these intrapanic injections as well. But the most important thing to know is that you're not alone out there, and you just have to learn to deal with it. I eventually got hearing aids, which were tremendously helpful. I went to the University of Maryland Hearing and Speech Clinic, where they fitted me with crossover type hearing aids. So everything that was coming over the left side was being fed into the right side. The problem with that is you're processing everything on one side of your brain, which can become a little bit overwhelming. And so I tried a myriad of different types of hearing aids, and finally settled some hearing aids that have worked fairly well for me, that are Bluetooth enabled, and so I can talk on phones and listen to Zoom calls and things of that nature, which have been tremendously helpful.
Wow.
I didn't realize there was so much trial and error in hearing aids.
I didn't either.
Well,
so you're describing a number of different hearing aids, if I heard you correctly.
Correct. So there's again, they initially fit me with a crossover hearing aid, which was Bluetooth connected to the right hearing aid, my left being my bad ear. So everything that was on my left-hand side was being fed into the right-hand side. And I found this completely overwhelming, to be honest with you. And so, of course, I went back to the University of Maryland. I said, this isn't going to work. And so they fitted me with a hearing aid on the left side that I could actually hear some sounds in my left ear. Now, not sounds that are discernible, but just sound. And I think that helped a little bit to actually have some sound on the left side, as opposed to trying to process everything on the right side and the right side of your brain, which was really difficult. So yeah, the hearing aids, I finally settled into hearing aids. I wear them every single day religiously.
Oh, that's great.
Wow.
Well, that's great. And I would imagine that's very important for safety. You're a biker, you need to hear car noises, etc. in your life. So having good hearing on both sides is really crucial.
Yeah, so sports and fitness are a huge part of my life, and I had to adjust everything that I love to do. I mean, the biking, I can't hear a car behind me because it's my left ear. So if you're riding on the shoulder of a road, every car is on your left-hand side.
Oh, boy.
I then got a device on my bike that tells me when there's cars behind me and how fast they're going, which helps tremendously.
Oh, wow. That's fabulous.
Well, that's a good coping strategy for how to do what you love and do it safely.
Yeah. So that sort of helped me out on the bike. I realized, I'm pretty much blind out there. Blind, not in the literal sense, but in the deaf sense.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that I do that I love, like golf and pickleball. On a pickleball court, I can't hear anything. I cannot hear a partner. So I always tell the partner, look, I can't hear anything you're saying. So don't take it personally.
Is there a lot of conversation in pickleball? I didn't realize that. There's a lot of strategy that is going on.
It's a very social sport.
I see. I didn't realize that.
I didn't realize it. I've never played.
No.
It's an incredibly social sport, a lot of fun, a lot of back and forth. And so, yeah. And golf, I can't hear anybody on the golf course.
Wow.
I think the hardest thing, then this is interesting, is that when it first happened to me, I literally didn't think I was going to be able to work anymore. I was really, really worried that I would never be able to work. And without working, I mean, what was I going to do? So I
Right.
started looking into disability. Like, how am I, what am I going to do? I've been doing this for 34 years. How am I going to continue to make a living? So interestingly enough, this happened in October of 2019. As you know, what happened on March 20th of 2020, 2020, we hit COVID. And so I had a real opportunity to sort of ease my way into this new life.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we all invented the Zoom calls. And so
Right.
as opposed to going in the office, we're doing Zoom calls. Well, now I had the hearing aid in the Zoom. I could, I was like, wow, I can work. I can do this. I can
Yeah.
hear perfectly. But you go
You
into
know,
a social situation, it's awful. I can't hear
uh-huh.
anything. A restaurant, a movie, I mean, you name it, it's almost impossible.
And is that because of the hearing loss or because of the tinnitus or both?
Both. It's a combination of both. Everything. So once you lose the hearing in an ear, everything's non-directional. So you can't tell whether it's coming from the left side, right side, above you, below you. And so when there's ambient noise and you're not one-on-one with somebody, it's just a scramble. And you have no idea what anybody's saying. Wow. It's a very lonely existence. We went to a wedding recently. It was a 6-hour wedding. It was literally like being alone for 6 hours. Once that band starts to playing, that's the end.
Mm-hmm. But Marc, it's so interesting because we interview and speak with so many people that have faced health challenges. And this is what you describe. It's very similar to what everyone seems to feel. How am I going to cope? How am I going to work? How am I going to function in this world?
Exactly.
And we spoke to a very accomplished doctor, and she had a medical condition. She stopped working. She said, I was the one that took care of everyone else. She said, I lost my identity. And it may be these medical conditions or even as rare diseases, they throw us for a loop at the beginning. But then we learn to cope with what we are given and come back because we're all fighters and we all want to be participants in this life. And so I congratulate you for finding the will and the way to come back and be you.
Absolutely.
A new you, but be you. And so bravo. I just think that's a great story. And I wanted to ask you, it may seem almost silly, but do you know sign language or using sign language?
No, I never got to the point. I was able to start reading lips if I was on with somebody. And then of course television, I have to do closed captioning. I cannot hear television. I cannot go to a movie. I mean, I used to love live music. It's something I miss so much.
And again, is that tinnitus or the hearing loss or both?
But it's a combination. But like I said, to lose the hearing is one thing, but to combine it with the tinnitus is a whole other thing.
Oh, wow.
And there's a direct correlation between tinnitus and anxiety. They say that almost 78% of people with tinnitus suffer from depression from it. So there's a direct link to the brain and tinnitus. So
that's not difficult to understand.
I mean, not
you
at
can
all.
Certainly. So now you've decided to have this surgery. And what were the factors that made you decide? You've had a while to think about it. What made you go to
Well,
surgery?
I was always hopeful that I would wake up one day and it would come back.
Sure.
I'm a fighter, just like you said.
Right.
And I fought it to the absolute end. Yes. And I was hopeful, despite the fact that every single doctor and expert that I talked to told me you'll never get your hearing back.
Right.
So I was told the cochlear implant may not cure the tinnitus, but I'm hopeful it will. And it's the only thing that might help at this point. I mean, there's just no other place to turn. I don't want to live like this the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. Were there other options that gave you any?
There's a thing called a BAHA, which I don't know a lot about, but it wasn't offered to me because my hearing loss is so profound.
I see. I see.
Now, the surgery is actually happening this week. Why now?
You fight, you get to a certain stage in your life where you've looked at every possible option that's out there. You've tried everything under the sun that's out there. You've talked to every doctor. You've talked to every person that's ever had a cochlear implant who had sensorineural sudden hearing loss like I have. And you weigh your options and go, what am I going to do at this point? I mean, I really don't think I have any other choice. I want to get my life back. I want to go to live music. I want to go to restaurants. Every time I see people conversing in restaurants, I feel such envy of how lucky they are to be able to talk to one.
Oh.
And so I want that again.
Right.
I just want to get my life back.
And Marc, I just wish you such good luck with this. And I want to ask, how has the anticipation of getting the implant affected your outlook, your mindset, the strength that you seem to have within to garnish every moment?
Well, look, I'm anticipating getting my hearing back in my left ear, and so I just want to be able to, talk to friends and be, being a part of, my life again. It's just like, your life has just completely changed, been completely disrupted by this disability. So, this is what, I've decided to do. I just want to be part of, part of talking to friends.
What held you back for these years? Was it just waiting to see what other options would come your way, or what would happen physiologically within your ear, or what were you waiting?
Well, when you read about things like FX322 and you read about the possibility of them being able to regrow those 10,000 little hairs in your cochlea again. I mean,
Right.
People put Propecia on their hair and regrow their hair. Why can't they regrow the hairs in my cochlea? And so, that was always my hope, that they would discover something. Medicine is so advanced. Why not this? Why can't they cure hearing loss that millions and millions and millions of people, deal with every day? So many people we know have hearing disabilities.
I was going to ask you, how are you preparing for the surgery?
Well, I've been preparing for this for 4 years, so I'm ready. I mean, 4 years is enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, like I said, I just can't live my life like this. I just can't live the rest of my life like this, I should say. So
now, I would imagine you're somewhat of an expert. You sound like you are certainly well acquainted with the hearing profession. You've been to a lot of doctors and a lot of universities. Can you walk us through some of the technical aspects of what this surgery is going to entail? Educate us.
Yes. And so, as you may or may not know, the cochlear implant receives sound from the outside, and it sends electrical currents to the auditory nerve. And then these currents activate the nerve, which sends a signal to the brain.
Okay.
So we're born this way. So when I get this cochlear implant in my left ear, obviously my brain has to learn to hear again, the left side.
Yep.
So the brain eventually learns to recognize the signal as hearing, and so the brain has to relearn how to process the signals again. So once the cochlear implant goes in, they don't activate it for about 4 weeks. Once they activate it, you go to an audiologist and basically go through something that's probably not dissimilar to going through physical therapy, except it's auditory therapy. So that's what I'm going to do, and then that's how it works. So what they do is they cut your scalp around your ear, and they drill in to the cochlea through the skull, and then they drop the processor into the cochlea, and then they implant a magnet on the outside of your head. So after 30 days, I'll be able to get that cochlear implant activated, and you basically attach a magnet. You've seen people with cochlear implants, and they'll be like almost like a hearing aid in my left ear.
It's really quite extraordinary.
It really is.
It's quite extraordinary. And this is a surgery that has, by the way, about a 90% success rate. I would tell you that you're going in with great odds. So I wish you, I join Kathy in wishing you great success. And there's great expectation that you will have good success. But, even still, you will have some hearing loss.
Yes.
So
I'll always wear hearing aids.
You will always be wearing hearing aids. And, we all have something, and that's fine. So now, can you talk to me a little bit about face-to-face communication, and that's why that is so important to your life?
Face-to-face is the only way. It's as long as there's no background noise and I'm face-to-face with somebody, or somebody's on my right-hand side, I can effectively communicate. As soon as background noise enters the picture, I can't hear a thing.
Should a person speak slowly when they're speaking to you? No,
absolutely, okay. No, absolutely not.
Just a lot of people in front of you.
A lot of people don't even know.
Right. I'm sure
that I have it. Like I said, it's an invisible disability.
Invisible, yes, and that's a very good term. And it requires a little bit of thought to our audience. If you think that we don't know that Marc can't hear, and there are lots of invisible disabilities, actually. Vision can be an invisible disability. Mental health can be an invisible disability. There are many that we don't think about that people suffer with, and you're one of them. You're one of them.
So, yes. Marc, in what ways has your experience with hearing loss reshaped your understanding of accessibility and inclusivity and just what Beth's talking about? There's so many invisible disabilities. Has it changed your effective understanding of all this?
Oh my God, I'm so much more empathetic to anybody, with any disability and their ability to live with it. Just have the utmost respect for those living with any sort of disability. It just shows so much inner strength and fortitude. It's really amazing, the human condition. To be able to adapt to something like this is difficult. But there's so many people that are so worse off than I am. But I've just become so much more empathetic to anybody, anyone with any disability.
And can you elaborate on any strategies you've developed to navigate communication challenges and ensure effective interactions with people? Now that you're more sensitive to this too, how do you kind of gauge invisible disabilities around you?
So Eileen and I, we have to strategize every time we go out. If we go out, it's got to be one couple, and then we have to make sure that we all sit in the right spot so I can hear you on the right-hand side. And then where's everybody else going to sit? Unfortunately, Eileen's always to my left, which is my deaf side, which we always laugh about. But the only way to communicate in group settings is to get really close to someone, and then I might be accused of being a close talker, or more importantly, not to eat much garlic. And then I talked a little bit about speaking too loudly, and I think I've become pretty good at sort of adjusting the volume at which I speak.
You've done a great job during this podcast.
That's been a challenge. One of the challenges over the 4 years I've really had to deal with. Interestingly enough, when I first went back into the office after COVID, I was at the copy machine. I was picking up something that I had copied, and somebody said something to me, and he went back to his desk and told one of my coworkers what an ass I was. And my coworker came up to me and said, "So and so thinks you're an ass." They said, "Oh my God." So I went to the coworker and I told him I couldn't hear in my left ear and how sorry I was.
Oh,
That's the
that's
kind
the
of things that you
story.
deal with.
That's the story. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You spoke about Eileen, who is your partner, and I wanted to ask you, so when you have a disability, it is so important, the family support, your loved ones, your children, your friends. Can you talk about what that means to you and what it has meant to you?
So Eileen as a partner has just been amazing. And, my entire family has been amazing throughout and been very supportive, of me and my inability to hear and, go out of their ways to make it work for me whenever we're all together. Even though when you get a group together and anybody starts cross talking, that's the end. You just can't hear anything. So Eileen does a lot of translation for me. And at the end of the evening, when we're going home or when we're home, I'll ask her to tell me what so-and-so said. So she's been great. And most of the people I know have just been great. So, it's so important to have a strong support group, not only with a disability, but without a disability. That's one of the keys to life is to have a strong support group around you. It just helps you so much mentally. And so, having Eileen and even Eileen's family has really been supportive. It's just been great.
Can I ask you, did you ever go to a support group?
There's not a lot of support groups.
Really?
There's Facebook groups, but
I see.
There's just not a lot of support groups for things like this. It's just, when you think of there's 330 million Americans and 6,000 people a year get it. It's a pimple. It's not something you hear about. But then again, every time I talk to somebody, they're like, "Oh, I have a friend the same thing happened to." You end up talking to these people, they pretty much have the same story that you do. But some of the things, obviously, that are meditation, I went deep into the meditation. I went deep into the mindfulness. I went deep into deep breathing and various forms of breathing. I've had great doctors. I've had great friends that have helped me navigate my way through the past 4 years. It's been amazing. Without them, I can't even imagine.
Now, but before we finish tonight, I wanted to ask you if you have any advice for people that may be listening that are also suffering with hearing loss.
Never give up. Never. I mean, take it one day at a time and just, do as much research as you possibly can. Go see the right people and get as many opinions as you possibly can. And there's things like sound machines and meditation and yoga and deep breathing. And, there's great doctors out there, and get as many opinions as you can, before you jump into getting a cochlear implant. Assuming you have, sensorineural sudden hearing loss, but never give up. That's the key.
Well, I think that is really great advice for our listeners. And I am so impressed with your mental attitude about this. Never giving up, stay engaged with what you love to do. Athletics seems to be a joy in your life. Your family is a joy in your life. And continue doing those things. Find a way to do them safely. As you said, you put an attachment on your bike, so you're safe out there. Your family knows you're safe as you continue to defy age and pedal away. And I congratulate you on finding ways to cope with a very substantial medical problem. And I think you're an inspiration for everyone who is listening here today. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you. Thank you for being a guest. And we will be thinking about you this week on Thursday as you go in for your surgery. We will be sending our prayers. And don't be a stranger. Be
Thank you,
well.
Beth.
Oh, Mark, we just wish you a smooth recovery.
Thank you,
And
Kathy.
you are a pillar of strength. You're a real
Yes, you are.
inspiration.
You
And
are.
Thank you.
just thank you. Thank you for being here.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of It Happened to Me. We encourage you to learn more at ithappenedtomepod.com. Please use the contact form on our website to submit your guest suggestions, comments, questions, ideas, and feedback for the show. You can also email us directly at ithappenedtomepod@gmail.com. We would really appreciate it if you can leave us a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app like Apple or Spotify. This helps others in the rare disease and medical challenge community find us. It Happened to Me is created and hosted by Kathy Gillenhorn and Beth Glassman. I'm Keir Deneen from DNA Today, and I serve as our executive producer and marketing lead. Amanda Andrioli is our associate producer. Ashlyn Anokian is our graphic designer. And remember, it happened to me. I'm not alone, and neither are you.